Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chef Creations. As a part of Organic Week 2021, the Canada Organic Trade Association is very excited to welcome Brad Long to speak with us about organic. Just a little round of introductions. I am Caroline Bernard, the Member Relations and Executive Coordinator here at the Canada Organic Trade Association. And joining us today, we have Chef Brad Long, who is one of Canada's top chefs and highly acclaimed by some of the country's toughest food critics. And also, not to mention, a recipient of the VQA Restaurant Awards of Excellence and the Globe and Mail Top 10 Restaurants of the Year. Currently, Long is chef and owner at Café Belong and Belong Catering in Toronto. He is co-host of the Food Network's smash hit Restaurant Makeover and is currently in post-production of a new provocative food documentary. An active advocate for sustainable farming and ethical treatment of livestock, balancing work and family is vital to Long. When he isn't creating menus and speaking with farmers or checking the freshness of new produce, he enjoys family time with his wife Sheryl and their 5 children. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Cheers.
So Brad, from a personal perspective, what do you think organic achieves?
Jumping right in, I think organic indicates to me that someone is paying attention to the soil and the process to a greater depth and breadth than you would if you're just trying to produce something that you could sell. So the point there is you buy and support organic because it'll be there into the future. It's not just a way of making money, but a way of balancing all the processes in order to get food.
And so now, as a chef, Brad, why did you choose to go into organic? What's important as a chef about that movement for you?
About 30 years ago, I started to realize that you can't make really good food unless you start with really good ingredients. And there were other chefs that were talking about where you get the best stuff. There's an argument, but there's a debate on how that works. And to me, it seemed pretty obvious that what you want is the freshest. You want the most intensely flavored. And because I'm cooking it, I'm not so worried that it's all the same shape and size, which is sort of a grocery store demand and not a chef's demand. And so if you look around for what meets that criteria, organic is basically set up to support that, so that we support organic farmers in order to keep farming. And in turn, I constantly get this steady stream of really delicious, highly nutrient dense stuff that changes throughout the year too. So it also keeps my attention. It maintains my attention.
Yeah, and it keeps the creative juices flowing for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you're looking for organic products, where are you sourcing from?
Okay, so organic becomes a little complex because you have to understand what that means to some extent if you're not just going to go by the label. But mostly, I'm dealing directly with farmers who are pledged to organics, who follow the criteria around organics. And that means that it's about the land, the plants, and to me, it's also about the people working on the farms. There's a lot of complex layers in there, and I want to support people who are doing the most ethical and really, conscientious processes across the board, just like I'm trying to do. It's not easy, but it's worth it. How about that?
Absolutely. And of ingredients, what do you always try and source organic, and why?
Let's see. There isn't something I don't source organic, I guess. I think if we're talking about more just generally, I would say dairy for me needs to always be organic. There's a broad spectrum of processes there. Feeds, dairy is almost always really good, but organic to me just takes it one step better. And I also tend to look at things like chickens because that's one of the animals that we have bred into how do I mean, we've sort of bred the animal into a potential stupor. It doesn't really resist. It's a pretty easy animal to raise anyway. So the ethic really falls on us to actually do better by the animal, because you can get one by sticking it in a very small cage. The give back there isn't just, that, gosh, I'm trying to be nice, but when a chicken actually is out in sunshine, eating bugs and grass, it has a better flavor and it has a better nutrient. It's a subtle difference. I'm going to live longer because I eat an organic chicken, but it actually is, simply put, better. I don't think you can argue that particularly, especially when you come down to flavor.
Absolutely, yeah. Happy food tastes better for sure.
Without a doubt, misery bears through on an animal. You can really, I wouldn't say I buy a lot of organic pork, because I don't see a lot of organic pork. But what I do there is I step through the process and find one of two people right now who I've been to their farm. I know I watch what they do, and they treat the animals. They treat their pigs like, like you would want your food and your pet. I mean, it's, when you put those words in there, that's not really it, but there is a life that the animal lives. There is a food, and there's an access to joy for the animal, just outside where it's supposed to be. And again, I find this sounds kind of funny, but it tastes better too. So for me, I'm giving a process. I'm going out to search for something that gives the animal a better life, and in return, I get something back for it. I think it's a pretty fair trade-off.
So for our, our viewers today who are probably joining us from home, could you offer any tips or tricks to keep organic affordable?
Ooh, organic affordable. Well, I mean, there's a little speech in there about paying for something that's better is worth it. I'm not really looking for cheap very often with food. And I mean, I'm not rich and I have 5 children, so this is a big impact on my home and my budget and everything else. But if you're going to a grocery store and you want to do better, you don't have to buy everything organic. That would be a huge switchover if you don't do that now, and it would also impact your budget. But you can slowly start adjusting and adapting your budget to these things by buying organic milk, by buying eggs that have, there's a lot of variation in there. Just keep trying ones and seeing if you can tell the difference in how they perform and how they taste. I think you should try chicken. You should definitely be buying organic chicken, and you're not saving money there, but you are saving a lot of other processes. And, I've heard a food writer say that when he bought a really good chicken, he and his partner ate less of it. It was more filling because it was more delicious. So there's also that consideration with organics in that there's a bunch of things. If you're going to pay a pinch more for it, you're probably going to pay more attention to how you cook it, and you're probably going to pay attention to how it tastes. And therefore, when you actually pay attention to something, you appreciate it more, and you usually need less, because the shoveling in of food usually occurs when it's all very much the same. Other aspects of organics, I would say, would be, I'm not trying to steer people away from farmers, but I actually find if you grow a few things, something simple like rainbow chard or kale or a tomato on your balcony or something like that, what you do is you learn about the process and the cycle, and then you appreciate if someone did a better job than somebody else or you. And that causes you to support organics, because you can pick one of those things up and go, wow, I wish mine grew that well. I wish mine had this great flavor. And then you start digging a little deeper and understanding that it might be the seed varietal, or it might be the soil, or it might have been how much sun it got. And then you're now engaged in the process of understanding where the food comes from to some extent. And once you start understanding about food, caring about it, you also start realizing that it's not about buying the cheap stuff. So I don't tend to guide people to inexpensive. I tend to guide people to quality and a sense of understanding why that's the qualities are different. It's not an easy tap dance, but it's definitely worth it. It seemed really obvious to me immediately, and now I've had these conversations for a lot of years, and I realize for some people it is a bunch of different things. Food is to me extraordinarily pivotal to everything, and therefore you would want the best. And my personal motto is food is fuel, which is the basis, because it's just fuel. You can eat very simple things and live and function. But if you go to the next layer up, it's medicine. If you eat really good foods, you need far less medicine. And medicines literally come from foods, and they come from nature. So it's not some divorced process. So when you start realizing that, you actually get easier and more affordable. And the last one is this, and that's it's like food is love, food is medicine. And my thing is, sorry, I said food wrong. Food is fuel, food is medicine, and food is love is important because that's your community. It's not like some squishy hippie term. When I say food is love, is that it's about taking care of yourself and your family. And when you buy from farmers and local artisans who are organic, you are committing acts of functionality within your community that actually is a love that makes your life richer and all of those around you more stable. It all makes sense, and it all basically passes through the nexus of food. That's my thing.
Wow. Yeah. What an answer. There's so many layers to that. That's great. And so I guess building on that, talking about working with what we have at hand and things that are seasonal and available to us, what can people start working with right now in September, something that's seasonal, available to us in Canada at home? Where would you recommend getting started?
Well, it's September and it's Canada. So this is the time where there's huge amounts of vegetables and, squash and things that have, most of the berries have sort of drained away. There's a few things like that, but now you're getting into all those fall crops and you're getting into brassicas. So you got lots of broccoli and cauliflower and kale, and you gotta wait a while for Brussels sprouts. But these are things that are really easy to cook, right? And really, really delicious if you do it right. Squash, pumpkin, it's funny. I should throw in here is that the seasonality is the thing that makes eating that much more exciting as you roll through them. If you're one of those people, like this is organics, means you're also tending towards macrobiotic, meaning you're eating seasonally through the year, whatever's ripe at that time. And the net, almost, it's not coincidental, but I mean, the net effect of that is that by the time you go through the cycle of not having something until it's good again, you're so excited to have it. Food all tastes better if you're actually excited to have it. If you're bored of it, it's just not gonna do the trick. And so for me, whatever the season is, I'm going out there looking for whatever is being picked right now. And I don't really have to vary how I cook through the year. It's what I'm cooking. And I end up, I don't know, happier about sitting down having dinner than I can't imagine eating the same thing, even the same thing like every Thursday. Oh, it's Thursday, we're gonna have, and I'm like, I notice a lot of people do this. And I notice in my restaurant, people do this, they come, they have a dish, they love it, they go away, they come back a month later and they go, oh, you don't have a dish on the menu. And I go, well, it was seasonal a month ago and now it's not again. And they go, well, I really wanted that. And all I can think of is, that's because it was really good. But what you're missing is, that's because we're cooking really good stuff. Try something this month. And I think that's more important, is just try something different this month, and you'll actually be that more excited about eating it. And you'll learn new little simple tricks, little recipes, and then you will run out of that product, and then you'll have to wait a year before you can play with it again, and do that for a few years, and all of a sudden you're in this cycle of always being really excited about what you're cooking for dinner. It's a really good outcome of just paying attention and going to the grocery store yourself. Or, and I'm not dissing grocery stores, but better than a grocery store, if you have the ability to get to a farm gate is even better. And maybe farm gate is something you can only do once a month. If there's public transit or some way you get a car to go out on a Sunday or a Saturday to drive around in the countryside around you, you should try and do that. It is worth it on so many levels to see where you live and meet the people around you and see what grows. That connection to the land, that connection to nature, that connection to your community is only ever going to make your life better and stronger. There's no downside to it whatsoever. You might have to get on public transit or burn some gas in a vehicle somewhere, which is, part of what we do.
Absolutely. So Brad, one thing that we've talked about in previous conversations between you and I was your analogy about boiling water and tips for cooking for organic. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, I can. I think one of the things that kind of makes me sad, I suppose, is that there is this perception out there that cooking is hard. And a lot of that was not farmers or even food processors, interestingly enough. It was more about people selling specialized cooking gear in the 60s and 70s, and that's a change, and so he kind of faded away again. You don't really see the, oh, you don't have to cook stuff anymore like I did when I was a kid. There was a lot of sort of, cooking's hard. You don't want to cook. And I kept thinking, yeah, I do. My mom cooks. It's really good. I don't know what you're talking about. So as I went through all this stuff, 3 years of college and apprenticing and traveling and working with different people, you learn a lot of complex techniques around cooking. But you also constantly realize that, especially if you're in a hurry, right? Or you have to feed your kids really quickly with something that's good and nutritious and hearty and keep them happy and healthy, is that you're not going to be able to do one of these complex, long run recipes. I mean, for instance, if you're terrines and things like that can take days just to get the gelatin and the liquids and the breaking down of all the animals, and so you can layer all the vegetables, so you can layer all these things together. Anything that you have to layer or anything else is really hard. And so I realized a long time ago that one of the most basic, one of the most natural, and probably the thing we've done, only one thing would be longer. I mean, I think we would probably, 100,000 years ago have just, drank some part of the beast we took down and leaned it somewhere near the fire, just because, I don't know, it probably was easier to chew, maybe. I have no idea. But the thing that we would have discovered after that, once we had vessels that we could put over a pot, which is a lot later than that, but probably arguably 10,000 years, we've had different metals and coppers and rocks boiling. And when you boil water, I've discovered a lot of people don't even know what do you mean by boiling? And everyone sort of snickered and thought I just said something stupid there, but not so much, because I've gotten out to like 15, 20 pots when I was in a classroom and said, fill your pot with water, and when it's boiling, put your hand up. And then I would keep talking and we would talk about different things. And slowly over time, people would start putting their hand up, and I would walk around and say, no, that's not even close. Because some people think it's when the bubbles form on the bottom, when they start to rise slowly, all these things. And it's like, no, what is going on there is the water transitions to gas at the boiling point. So it's 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit, whichever, doesn't matter what thermometer you're using, it's the same temperature. But what the point is anything below that isn't boiling. It's only at that point and up. That's important, because if you put anything in water, vegetable, starch, noodles, whatever, and it's not boiling and it's not salted, you end up with a bunch of bad effects like gray vegetables, mucky pasta, potatoes cooked from the outside in, just things that are just mucking up your food. And so one of the most interesting and dead simple things to do is just once you learn when it's boiling, I mean, it boils. It just, and you salt that water and you salt it based on, there's no like, it's a tablespoon for, it's not, it's what kind of salt are you using? I don't, and how much, taste it. And it should be, well, less than seawater, but, sort of like a really bland soup. And that's when you put whatever. So cut up green vegetables, corn, potatoes I tend to start from cold, beets maybe from cold. There are a few things about, there's an old expression, if it's cold in the ground, start it in cold and bring it up. But nonetheless, it has to come to a boil. And it sets, and the salt sets the color, it sets the nutrients. And it's when you eat its texture, it's the chewiness. My father always hated broccoli, and then he didn't eat it, right? So his mother would have cooked broccoli when he was a kid. It would have been probably one of his buddies who hated it too. I have no idea, but my mom never cooked broccoli. He didn't want it. And then one day I cooked some broccoli, and everyone was like, "This is great." And was there a secret? No, I just put it in boiling water. I took it out, and I tend to just drain it really good and put it back in with some hot fat. I use butter, but coconut fat works really well. It's nice and clean. Olive oil is good. Salt, again, a little bit, and then acid. So lemon, lime, cider vinegar, whatever. But those are just seasonings, right? So you don't even have to put salt or acid on it after that. You can just take it out and eat it. It will be cooked. It will be easy to digest. It will be quite delicious, and you will get a lot of nutrient out of it. That's kind of the whole point of eating. The layer above eating is the deliciousness. So that's where I put in the seasoning. But I mean, if we're talking about living, you do have to break things down. I find, here's one, is that raw food people tend to say that the cooking kills the nutrients in it, which is, that's actually not true, but it's true. What cooking does is kills certain nutrients, enzymes by heat process in the process of cooking. When you go up above about a couple different temperatures, 113, 117 Fahrenheit. So the way I always tell people this, if you feel strongly about that, eat all the broccoli stems before you cook them, and then eat the cooked ones, because really what's happening is raw has different enzymes in it that help you digest the raw materials and the cooked. So you want to really supercharge your diet, cook, and then you'll have access to the raw and the cooked. If you are the one cooking, you're the one that gets to eat it in all the different stages. Otherwise, eat it cooked, because that is really, truly where, as a species, humans started to grow bigger brains, because it's way easier to digest cooked vegetable matter, and it frees up a lot of time for us to, and gives us energy. So we digest it quickly, have the energy, and then we have time, really the simplest version of it, we had time to sit around and talk about stuff and think. But boiling water is something you can do with the simplest gear, with the simple seasonings, the simplest ingredients, and you end up with a whole range of meals. Basically enough meals that you would never need to ever learn to saute, sous vide, or anything after that if you didn't want to. And sous vide is just another version of using water, but it's at lower temperatures where you're warming stuff up. So even if you're sous videing vegetables, somewhere in there you have to put the vegetables in boiling water, take them out, vac them, chill them, and then bring them back out and warm them in sous vide. So the fact of the matter is, boiling is really where water's at.
What a great starting point for everyone. It's good to rethink the basics. So Brad, what's next for you in the organic world?
Well, I have this little theory that I'm about to test, and that is, well, okay, so fact, Toronto, Ontario, Canada is easily one of the most astounding food cities on the planet. I would actually say it leads all because of the one factor that, there's a few other places in the world could do this, but Toronto really has done this, and it's done this from the beginning, and it's doing it still, which is it's multicultural. Not sort of, kind of, but completely. And what multiculturalism does to a place like Toronto, which is embedded in the middle of a rich agricultural zone, is that everyone who came here brought their seeds and their recipes and their cultures, their holidays and traditions, and then restaurants that were true to their cultures, or the town that they're, because within cultures there's variations that can cause fistfights, shapes of pasta, for example. Anyway, and then the next generations, as Toronto has grown, have fused those cultural specifics into new kinds of food and everything else. And I was commissioned in 1995 by the CN Tower to do Canadian food. And what I discovered was there wasn't really a critical mass of Canadian dishes, but there was this multiculturalism that's really caused us to be hurling toward what will be a Canadian cuisine over the next few generations. And, it goes into the future. It's a good thing. And we're moving toward Canadian cuisine. And so when I realized all of that, that was 25 years ago, what I've slowly been putting together over the time, and I'm from a small town. My restaurant's in Toronto, but I live in a small town north of there. And now I'm moving to another small town. I'm going to keep the restaurant in Toronto, and here's the theory, is that what I believe and what we've been talking about is the stewardship of the land, the good organic farmers, the farmers who are growing and, treating the animals, the workers, the soil with dignity and respect, which really is the basis of how you get to a sustainable process. I mean, a sustainable process is one that has something left over at the end of the cycle, it allows you to go through it again. And so one of the things I've seen about that little thing is that Toronto seems to have cottoned onto it. Toronto seems to support the farmlands surrounding it. What's interesting is you go into the farmlands surrounding Toronto, you go into the little towns, and they don't so much support it. The grocery store really buys from some centralized depot, unless it's a local grocery store. The restaurants in most small towns are on the edge of town, and they are national brands, and they buy centrally through. So most of the foods in small towns comes from Central Valley, California, Chile, Florida. That comes from away. And I've also been buttonholed, like, why are you against immigration or buying or supporting other countries? And I'm like, I'm not against it. It makes more sense to be strong where you are and have strong community around you. And the stronger we are, the more we can support outward, and the more we can bring things in and trade with other people. By just standing here and buying from over there, I'm not doing anything good for where I am right now. I'm not doing anything for me or my community. I'm just sending money somewhere else. And I get something here, and then I use it up, but then I get it from there again. So it's always seemed obvious to me to get it from here. Doesn't make the most sense to now for someone like me who's done this and proven it can be done in stadiums and arenas and places where tourists go who come to see Canada and Toronto. I've done it in restaurants on my own. I need to do this in small towns. I want to take the idea of supporting the farms around the town and the artisans within and surrounding the town, and open a restaurant, and maybe a restaurant in every town in Canada, but I'm going to just start with one. And it's in Sharbot Lake, which is north of Kingston. It's actually in between Ottawa and Kingston. It's actually also dead in the center between Montreal and Toronto. And but it is just surrounded by pasture lands and Ottawa Valley and farms and people who make pickles and mustards and breads. And I can make all those things, but it strikes me as it's a lot more community and it's a lot more, I actually think it might just be like a clever idea to make money as well. So I'll even throw out the idea that it's big-headed of me to say I'm doing it because I think it's smart, but I also think it's good because basically my marketing plan is my operating plan, which is I go out, I buy a bunch of great stuff from farmers and from the local artisans. I make a menu out of that, and then I invite all the people from those communities to come to the restaurant and celebrate and support each other right then and there. So that's how I operate, and that's how I market it as well. Come, you're going to eat all the things from the lands around you and from the people in your community. And those circles can be done around every one of the towns. And some people are already doing it in some small towns, but for the most part, you can't get in the town, you can't get the food grown around that town in the town. And I find that like something not only is a bit sad, but something I want to unlock and allow for. So yeah, I mean, I've sold my house, I've bought an old, and I mean old, and I do mean no one's lived there for 5 years, it's abandoned, and it was a dairy farm out in the eastern part of Canada, so it's not been a dairy farm for a long time, because industrialization changed all these things. And so I'm going to learn, I'm not going to farm per se, I'm going to learn how to steward that big chunk of land. And I'm going to learn how to steward that big chunk of land by also having a restaurant in the town nearby. And I think that kicks off a pretty good conversation with all my neighbors. And I think that's a good place to take my children and have them experience the realities of Canada and Ontario and the gorgeous land and country that we live in, and take part in some part of stewarding that land, participating on and in that land and in that nature, and also try and tie together a few of my fellow humans in that land and nature. And, just I'm trying to enter that community and see if I can help. So that's, that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm kind of trying to even walk more of my talk. So we'll see.
So excited to see you and see what's coming in Charlotte Lake. That sounds absolutely super exciting. I'm sure everyone will be following that closely. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with us today, Brad. We're so thankful for your organic insights. For all others watching today, thanks for joining us for Chef Creations as a part of Organic Week 2021. Be sure to check out our website, organicweek.ca, for more organic content.